What's going on, Trojan family? Welcome to the USC LAFB show here in the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports. Here's your daily dose of USC Trojans news. I'm sure all of you have heard by now the unfortunate news. DJ Wingfield has lost his injunction, lost his lawsuit. I won't get into all the legalese that is above my knowledge and pay grade, but essentially he will not be playing football for USC this fall. Probably will not be playing college football, or not probably. He will not be playing college football unless this goes up to a higher court. Extremely unfortunate, first and foremost, for DJ Wingfield, who, this will cost him a lot. You look at the timeline of this situation, obviously enters the transfer portal from Purdue, has this thought that he will get another year to play, so then ultimately commits to USC, therefore foregoing the NFL draft, practice in the spring with USC, then finds out his waiver has been denied, so now has to go through this legal process, staying away from the team, not practicing, not doing any of that, and now finding out basically a week or so before the season starts that his college career is over. So not only did he waste all that time, he missed out on the NFL draft. He missed out on walking on to any NFL teams who have been with their spring OTAs, mini camps, and now training camp. So missed out on an opportunity to make an NFL squad, whether an actual 53-man roster or a practice squad. And now, assuming he still wants to play football, which I'm sure he does, he'll have to just kind of train. Maybe he'll get an invite to an NFL camp to join kind of late season practice squad situation. But man, your heart breaks for him. It's unfortunate. It's such a tough situation because it's case by case college football. There's no true, if you want to call it law and order or want to call it an actual the hard line how this works. It's kind of based on each judge's decision making. Because like I said, when the news first came out that his waiver was denied, to me it was a no-brainer. When you looked at Diego Pavia with Vanderbilt, when you look at some of the other players who gained their 6-year eligibility, it seemed like he fit within the criteria. So to me, it was like a no-brainer that he would get it. And then as it kind of progressed, and you saw that it go through different court appeals and different judges and different locales in the country, you knew it wasn't going to be that easy. So super bummed for the kids. So I want to talk quickly today. One, how much is USC to blame? Not that he didn't get his waiver, but to be in this situation, getting a guy they went after in the portal, seemingly to be your starting guard, and now to be without him. How much are they to blame that they do not have this depth now? And then two, what does the offensive line look like right now, August 19th, 10 days or so before the season kicks off? I'll be at practice today here in just a couple hours. Lincoln Riley, I'm sure, whether it's from me or someone else, will obviously get asked about this Wingfield situation. We'll see how much he can even comment on it. Technically, I think the legal process is done. Now, obviously, there can be more appeals and more like that, which will just take a lot longer. So we'll see what he says, but I'll be at practice at USC, and obviously we'll do a video maybe later tonight, depending what comes out of it. If not tomorrow, or for sure, Tim and I will be on the Call-In Show live. So would love all of you guys to come on that tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific. Call in, give your thoughts on this Wingfield situation, this offensive line situation, and kind of what you think about it. So, okay, let's look at this. How much is USC to blame for this? That it was their decision to go to the portal for a kid who was seemingly out of eligibility. So most people will put the onus fully on them that they messed this up. They flubbed this up. They did not plan accordingly. They did not create the depth required for the offensive line. I'm going to take a little different approach, and many will maybe call it too optimistic, too much of a spin. That's fine. Drop in the comments on your thoughts. But this is just, when you look at the timeline and what had progressed, all indications were that this was going to work out in their favor, and they would get a very good player in the process. So let's start with Emmanuel Pregnon. That was obviously the big domino here. I won't get into all the details. I have some inside info, kind of why it went down. It was much more on, I did talk about it before, kind of the tampering, the NIL offer from Oregon and all that. Like, that was a big part of it. To my knowledge, there was no ill will with SC. It wasn't like he was unhappy. I think it was more of something in that linear. But anyway, let's look at the timeline, right? So the portal opens in before Christmas, around that time in December. USC plays the Las Vegas Bowl on December 27th. Emmanuel Pregnon plays in that game. Talks that week about his excitement about the direction, about Zach Hansen coming over to the offensive line room. Remember, because at that point, Josh Hansen already left for Purdue. They had made a decision to move Zach Hansen over to the offensive line. I talked about it a few videos ago. Lincoln Riley during that time moved and coached the tight ends because Zach Hansen had already moved the O-line. So Pregnon talked about his excitement working with Hansen. Everything looked great. He played in the game, played well. January 3rd, he enters the portal. Like, I'm trying to think back, but that's like when the winter portal closed. It was like the midnight hour that he entered it. So it wasn't like at that point there was like this slew of options. Now there were others. There were other guys still in the portal besides just DJ Wingfield. But it wasn't like it was December 18th where you had all these offensive line options, and where at the time USC didn't need one because seemingly Emmanuel Pregnon was the starting left guard moving forward, and a very good one at that. So his decision on January 3rd to enter really put USC in a tough spot to go after someone. They end up getting DJ Wingfield to commit January 5th, 2 days later. So let's look at another player on their roster, DeCarlos Nicholson. DeCarlos Nicholson, if you remember, around Christmas time, first he randomly kind of entered the portal. That was kind of a weird thing, and then he ended up saying, never mind, I'm staying here. But he, because of this whole waiver thing, was another player that got another year of eligibility. Obviously, we know whatever the process was, he cleared his waiver. He was accepted and given that extra year. So if you're SC and you have a player on your roster already who has been granted this very new NCAA waiver that just came out in December, I wrote about it on December 23rd, this new waiver NCAA came out. And you have a player that went through that exact process, cleared, has this extra year. In your mind, you're thinking, okay, here's a guy, almost identical situation, played JUCO, went to New Mexico, went to Purdue, should get another year. We have slim pickings to choose from now on January 3rd, January 4th for the portal. This guy's clearly the best player. All indications are he should be cleared to play because DeCarlos Nicholson, our guy, just got cleared to play. Like, I don't see what could be a difference here. So that was the decision they made to go after him. That was, I think, why they made that decision for everything I just outlined. Obviously, it did not work out. And it looks like USC has egg on their face. And, hey, the decisions you make, you're stuck with. So ultimately, they do have egg on their face because they made that decision. They felt good about the way the situation worked out with Nicholson and other players, and so thought it'll be the same with Wingfield. Now, this is a whole nother video, but this is why the NCAA in general is such a just poorly run organization. I mean, stuff like this, I don't know why you could have different decisions on different players. Like, it should be black and white. How can you just 10 years ago be so black and white, supposedly, on player benefits, like tattoos, lose scholarship, cars, lose scholarship, a meal, lose, like, it was just like, it doesn't matter. If a player gets something for free from something associated with the university, that's a strike. Black and white, doesn't matter. But then something like this that is much bigger deal, there's so much minutia and difference, and kind of depends on what the judge decides. and what your actual legal case is, whether it's NIL related, whatever. So, I mean, that's a whole nother story of why the NCAA is just a joke at this point. Why they even, like, I was talking to someone at practice the other day, like, at this point, the NCAA needs to just relegate to the Olympic sports. Like, there probably is some good they do there just because there's so many other sports and, you know, to have a governing body over that. But they just need to get out of football because it's come out of clash and nothing they do makes any sense at all. You see the Michigan punishment. It's like laughable compared to what they gave to USC with all their scholarship reductions over Reggie Bush's parents getting a house from a wannabe agent, not even from the school. And Michigan's straight up whatever your stance is on sign stealing, and they get a fine. And if their coach is suspended when they play a 1AA school, like, the NCAA is a joke. So what do you guys think? Like, I'm really curious because I'm on the fence that yes, USC has to own it. They made a decision, but based on the way things transpired, based on Emmanuel Pregnon, and based on the way things went with their own player, DeCarlos Nicholson, it was much more likely that they were like, well, I mean, why wouldn't this work out? Like, this is a new rule. Everyone's going to, at that point, it was like, this was the rule. Players that played JUCO and potentially had a COVID year get a 6th year. So I think there maybe just wasn't enough understanding of what the process looked like. So ultimately, they have to own it, but I don't think it's like this egregious malpractice that they performed. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, yeah, they made a mistake. Obviously, they own it, but it wasn't like this. They're incompetent, and that's why this happened. Now, what does the offensive line look like going forward? I think there's a lot of concern among the fan base. Again, I'm more on the optimistic side. Again, we have to see it play out before I really feel about it. I know I've seen a lot of fans that have been on message boards. Guys I know at practice, I respect all of them. All of them are super smart, work their tails off, so none of this is trying to discredit them. Based on what we've been allowed to see, I'm just saying, like, no one should be, like, crashing out or freaking out, because even the full practices and scrimmages that we have seen, I mean, the personnel, the team is trying out all these different personnel groupings. They're running different units against different units. They're testing things. It wasn't like we watched an hour scrimmage, 1-versus-1s go. There was all these different groupings. Sometimes the 1s were against the 3s. 3s were against the 2s. You had Husan Longstreet running with, like, what looked to be maybe a variation of the one offensive. I mean, it's just all this different stuff. So all I'm trying to say is, like, no one needs to read too much into things right now just because we haven't been able to see what it's straight up going to look like. Now, based on what I have seen, and this is more, again, we can't talk about the scrimmage, but more of just kind of the practices and what we've talked to and we've talked to coaches, I do think this offensive line's in a better spot than people think. Again, what I think I said this last episode, like, the inexperience is the concern. That's the concern. You're going to have guys starting now because DJ Wingfield's out that have not played a collegiate snap. That is the concern. But I don't think the skill set, the size, and potentially the continuity is as much as a concern as maybe people think. So we'll see what it looks like. I think you have obviously left tackle locked in with Elijah Page. That right now, to me, is your only locked in position based on kind of what I've seen and heard. John Ray Reed has always felt like the locked in center, but Killian O'Connor is pushing him to the brink. John Ray Reed loves Killian O'Connor. The staff loves Killian O'Connor. The team loves Killian O'Connor. So I don't think that's a foregone conclusion that Reed is the locked-in starting center. Will we see like a rotation? I think that's a harder position to rotate. Obviously, you can if you have to, but with all the checks and obviously you want to have a clean snap every time. That's when you want to have like a solidified guy. Will it be Reed or O'Connor? We'll see kind of how the next 10 days or so play out and what we're allowed to see and hear. But I do think that's a lot closer than everyone, including myself, anticipated going into fall camp. I think it was a foregone conclusion. Reed was your locked-in center. I think he'll ultimately end up being that guy. But I know Killian O'Connor, the staff loves, and we'll see. Right guard, Kalen Miller's been pushing Alani Noah. I know that scared a lot of fans hearing that, but he's been pushing, which is a good thing. Like, I think the depth is a lot better in this offensive line than what previously was thought of. Let me get this back in focus here. There we go. So I think that's a good thing. I do think Alani Noah ultimately ends up winning that right guard job. He's been the starter essentially for 2 years now. Obviously has had some growing pains. But I think with his size and the experience, I do think he ultimately wins that job at right guard. Now, when you look at right tackle, this is where it gets interesting because if DJ Wingfield's playing and is your left guard, I think Tobias Raymond is your starting right tackle. Without DJ Wingfield, though, there's an argument you could move Tobias Raymond over to left guard and start the young kid Justin Tanu at right tackle. Because Coach Hansen has said this, Coach Riley has said this, like they're going to play their best five. They value versatility, and they want to play the best five guys. So if Tobias Raymond is one of your best five, you got to find a spot for him. And if he's better at that guard spot than maybe a Justin Tanu, who's maybe your other best five guy, then that's what you ultimately could do. So there's a world where we could see Page and Raymond on the left side. I'm still going to lean Genre Reed at center, and then Alani Noah and Justin Tanu, on the right side. There's a world for that. There's another world where Tobias Raymond stays at right tackle like we all kind of projected, and Micah Benuelos, I think, has had a fantastic camp. Roy Benuelos has been on our show a couple times. Great guy. I think Micah's pushing hard, but he is coming back from injury. So is he fully there yet, ready to start? I think he can be the future left guard. I think he's good enough. I think he has good enough size. I know there's been some questions about his height, but at guard, I think he's fine. He's too small to be tackle. Too short, but his height's fine for the guard position. So I think he ultimately would be a great left guard. The question is his strength fully back from some of those injuries, or does he take a little bit more time? Because then if he's then at left guard, then you have Tobias Raymond at right tackle. And then Tanu can be your swing guy, or not necessarily a swing guy, but can fill in at right tackle if they need Raymond to be a swing guy in certain situations. So that's kind of how I see it. There's still a lot of stuff can change, obviously. I think Erwin Tayami has had a good camp as well. Another guy that we could see. I think Aaron Dunn and Alex Payne, Willie Washer, the true freshman, and Elijah Vicona, all have looked really good for freshmen, but obviously they're freshmen. You do not want to see them out there this early on if you don't have to. So, but I think that those are all bright futures if needed to get thrown into the battlefield. Vicona is just a monster. Elijah Vicona is a huge person that's a very bright tackle. Like, all the talk during recruiting was about Payne and Dunn, and rightfully so. I think they have bright futures. But Vicona has been one of my standouts at fall camp. Like, this guy was an underrated 3-star that if his conditioning and endurance holds up, his technique and his size, he could be an elite tackle with the right coaching. So I think there's a lot of excitement there. But the combinations I see are kind of what I laid out. What do you guys think? How concerned are you? I know a lot of fans are concerned based on kind of what I've seen on Twitter and whatnot and heard in the other spheres. I'll just say don't fret. Don't freak out too much. I think things are okay. I think this offensive line is going to be a lot better than people think. I'm not saying they're going to be a top 10, or I'm not saying they're going to be a top Big 10 offensive line, like a top 1, 2, 3 unit, but they'll be better than last year. I have no matter what, they're without DJ Wingfield, but they will be better than last year. That I feel very confident about. So we'll see. This thing keeps getting out of focus. My apologies. I think I'm moving my hands too much. But let me know what you guys think. Comment below. As always, I appreciate you hanging out with me here on the USC LAFB show. Like I said, depending how practice goes, I'll jump back on here. But at the latest, you'll see myself and Tim on the Call-In Show Wednesday, 7 p.m. Make sure to tune in. If you're interested, you can become a member of the channel, link below. or head to LAFBnetwork.com and subscribe there. A lot of perks there to join our entire LA sports community, some merchandise discounts, different content offerings, plus just like your membership here, a portion of your subscription is donated to help youth sports initiatives right here in Los Angeles. So, well, that's all the time we got. I'll be heading out to USC here in just a few, but appreciate you as always. And as always,